Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 83, featuring the top 5 scenes in Sickbay. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse, and I am the host of the TrekRanks podcast. And tonight, we are returning to our Scenes in Trek series, which is my favorite series that we do here on TrekRanks. Tonight is the 7th different version of Scenes in Trek. We've previously done scenes in a turbolift, in a Jeffries tube, in a shuttlecraft, in a brig, on location, and most recently we did scenes in a cave. And tonight we're doing top 5 scenes in Sickbay, which I've been wanting to get to. That one's been on the long list for a while. Sickbay has often been the heart and soul of Trek and the storytelling over the years, so there's obviously a lot to choose from tonight. And joining us for tonight's show, making her 3rd appearance on TrekRanks all the way from the UK sector, it's Katharine Robinson. Katharine, welcome back.
Hi, Jim. Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you back. Katharine's previously been on One-Off Romances and our Weirdest Character shows. And our second guest today is making his TrekRanks debut. But you've heard him on the show before because he left us a great voicemail that we played a while back on episode 75, our top 5 short treks moments. And it just so happens his voicemail was an awesome list for our top 5 scenes in a cave. So we said, let's get him on the show. So Sam Nelson, welcome to TrekRanks, buddy.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for having me on. I'm super excited to be here, and what a great topic.
Yes, this is always a great one. So Sam, our first-time guests, we like to get our quick Trek origin stories. So what's your quick backstory here? How'd you get into Trek, and have you seen it all? And what's your favorite series? Give us a quick snapshot.
Great. Well, as growing up as a child in the early 80s, I came across, when it was quite popular to have syndication, of course, and those channels floating around. We had a new channel in the upstate of South Carolina, and I came across, they played what they called a Star Trek-a-thon. And I just flipping channels one day. It was 24 hours of straight TOS Star Trek. And I instantly fell in love, was glued to it. A few months later, they did it again. And I, at the tender age of 8, was able to program the VCR. And I swapped out tapes every 8 hours. And I recorded every single episode that I could. And absolutely fell in love with the original series. Saw Star Trek 3 in the movie theater. And then a few years later, watched TNG with my parents all the way through its 7 seasons. I am a completist. I've seen them all. If my favorite series changes all the time, of course, like most people.
Perfect for TrekRanks.
Absolutely. It keeps you engaged. And I would say that the best Star Trek series is DS9. But my favorite my favorite's absolutely Enterprise. I love it. I was there from the beginning. I'd gotten away from Star Trek for a little bit there in my early adulthood, but Enterprise pulled me back in. I was able to go back and watch all of DS9 and Voyager and catch back up again. And now I've seen it all. I'm going through a slow rewatch of every series again. And I'm, what am I on? Season 5 of TNG at the moment. So absolutely love Star Trek. It's a big part of my life. And this is it's a highlight for me, Jim. Thank you.
That's amazing. Enterprise we don't hear that often, but I mean, we love Enterprise here, to say the least. So TOS was your first Trek.
That's right.
All right. That is great. As the same for me. So, all right, it's going to be a great show. Let's get into our TrekRanks recalibration.
What are you recalibrating?
Everything. It's a sweeping, a recalibration of all systems.
First up, as regular listeners will know by now, general order number 1 here at the TrekRanks podcast is that we love Trek. We love to rank Trek via some deep dive topics just to get the conversation started. And remember, it's not about the ranks. That's just an excuse for us to talk about Star Trek.
But what is that Vulcan motto? Infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
And what is diversity? A celebration of differences.
And as Topol and Dr. Phlox just said, TrekRanks is basically just a big old celebration of differences. There are no wrong answers at TrekRanks. So it's not about being right or definitive in any way. It's just about sharing the things that we love about Trek We love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise and the Kelvin timeline, and now Discovery and Short Treks and Star Trek Picard as well.
Black alert. Black alert.
And a reminder that this episode of Trek Ranks is current through Discovery Season 2, all of the short treks from Season 2, and of course now through Star Trek Picard and the first season of that amazing new series. And one final reminder that for a topic like this, we use episodes as a shorthand, but the 13 films are always in play as well.
Interface, operations, net access, channel 90.
And you can find Trek Ranks on the net access interface links at trekranks.com, and you can contact me directly on Twitter at TrekRanks or at Enterprise Extra. You can also call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. All right, to wrap that up, Katharine and Sam, why don't you guys let everybody know how they can get a hold of you on the net access interface? Katharine.
Yeah, Twitter's probably best for me. I'm now Knitted by Nails on Twitter, although when I was last on the show, I was the Sorceress.
That's right, you changed it up. And Sam, how about you?
99% of my social media is on Twitter. You'll find me at SLNelson77.
Okay, and for this week's topic, we are skipping our usual level 1 diagnostic and jumping straight into our Prime Directives to see how everyone broke down their picks. So,
I do not concur with your captain's decision.
She's following our Prime Directive.
Define Prime Directive.
Okay, so Katharine, let's start with you. How did you define your Prime Directive in order to finalize your picks on a topic this vast?
Yeah, so it is so vast. My secondary systems is this gigantic list.
Me too.
At first I was thinking, well, okay, on Deep Space Nine it's called the infirmary, but it's really Sickbay and I'm counting it.
I'm glad you said that because I was going to actually mention that and forgot. So that's great. Yes, of course, DS9 is the infirmary.
Yeah, because I wasn't going to leave out all of Deep Space Nine or just have the 1 or 2 times that we see a little bit of Sickbay on the Defiant.
Course, right.
And, things like some of the sick bays have like a chief medical officer's office. I was including that as part of Sickbay. But I was also then thinking when they're using something like 10 forward or the mess hall to double as Sickbay in an emergency, I'm not going to count that. Otherwise, anything could be Sickbay if somebody's getting treated there. So it had to be an actual like hospital environment or, starship equivalent. And then when it came to narrowing it down, it was really just looking at the impact of the scene. Like, did it impact on the show? Was it a character moment? Yeah, just how impactful was it, I suppose, was my my criteria.
Okay, and I'm glad you brought that up because it really isn't just about sickbay on a ship. You could make an argument for a triage area or like the episode Nor the Battle to the Strong, which obviously the whole thing is kind of a medical triage area, and that would make sense for a pick as well. So, Sam, how about you? How did you break it all down?
The same way that you guys are thinking about it. There's so many scenes, and instantly when I got your message about sickbay, 1,000 things came to mind. So I had to really wrap around and figure out a way to narrow that list. And I got real specific, and in some cases it might have bit me in the butt. But I wanted to make sure that the CMO, the chief medical officer, was in the scene. It was an integral part of the scene. I just didn't want there to be action. I wanted it to be kind of like what Katharine was talking about. There had to be some real meat to what was going on in that scene. And I wanted to make sure that the doctor of that series, or their stand-in doctor of that series, was a big part of the scene. So I had a lot of favorites. And the Prime Directive helped me kind of narrow the list down.
Okay, that's fantastic. I didn't really box myself in at all. I just did for scenes in Trek, I normally just do a straight brainstorming. This I say it all the time. It's my favorite topic on Trek Ranks. And I love to just think about them all and then figure out the 5 that I want to talk about without kind of breaking down a criteria. However, I think mine is going to match what you guys have done. They're all pretty big scenes, and I have to go through it, but I think they all include like the main doctor of a show. But I like that criteria. I didn't think of that. So, okay, this is going to be great. We'll see if we have any duplicates. Let's do this, Third Modicon. Introduce us to the order of things.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
Thank you, Third Modicon. And as always, just a quick reminder on how we're going to go through the order of things. First, each of us will reveal our 5-word summary and a hashtag to tease our pick. Then we'll reveal our scene in Sickbay and the episode in which it appeared, and we'll discuss the reasons we were highlighting it. And at the end, we'll ask everyone for a few secondary system selections for the picks that maybe just missed our list. And as always, if we have any duplicate picks, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedoes. Okay, Katharine, let's kick this off with you. What is your number 5 pick for your top 5 scene in Sickbay?
Okay, so this one would not match Sam's criteria, so this is interesting. Okay. So my 5 words are "All Our Hopes Rest Here," and the hashtag is Kittimer Accords. And the episode is by Inferno's Light from Deep Space Nine, when Sisko gets Gowron to re-sign the Kittimer Accords. And it's just this little scene. It's really understated, but I'm like, Sisko just got Gowron to re-sign the Kittimer Accords. It's just this huge moment that is just so understated, and just their whole little bit of dialogue gives me goosebumps. So I really wanted to talk about it. And of course, Changeling Bashir is just hovering in the background while this is all happening. And yeah, I love the dialogue in the scene. The whole, 5 years ago, no one had heard of Voyager or Deep Space Nine, right, and all that. And it just, goosebumps every time.
That is a classic scene, and what a super deep cut. And I love that it's not really a doctor scene, because it's Sisko and Gowron with, like you said, the Changeling guy hanging out in the background. I love it. What an awesome deep cut. Sam, what's your take on the re-upping of the Kittimer Accords and by Inferno's Light?
Look, Gowron, in any time you can get Gowron and those eyes in a scene, and when you can take someone like him and put him with Sisko, that entire arc there, in that piece that episode was playing off of, was just so intense.
I will do what must be done. Fall back. Pull my forces out of Cardassian space, fortify the Klingon Empire, and prepare for a fight to the death.
Maybe there's a better way.
The Kittimer Accords. The treaty between the Federation and the Klingon Empire is dead.
But we can bring it back to life again. This is the most fortified position between here and the Klingon Empire. There will be a Starfleet task force here soon. If you could bring your fleet here,
then we could stand united against the Dominion. And if we do,
we might have a chance.
Think of it. 5 years ago, no one had ever heard of Voyager or Deep Space Nine, and now all our hopes rest here.
It's a great pick. I didn't even think of it on my secondary system.
No.
Love it. Love the choice. And I'm always a huge fan of Robert O'Reilly and that Gowron. And anytime I could see him, I just watched an episode with him recently, and it just flooded everything back to me. I just love that character and his intensity.
It's so funny. I was just about to say, shout out to Robert O'Reilly and his Gowron. The guy is incredible. And during research for this topic, was watching an episode, which I will not say what it is right now. And he was in it, and there was a scene, and I didn't tweet it, but I almost stopped just to be like, fan appreciation moment for Robert O'Reilly as Gowron. The guy is unbelievable. So good. And this is a awesome deep cut pick. I love it. Okay, Sam, how about you, man? What's your first pick?
My first pick, or number 5 pick, is Body is Just a Machine. Hashtag That's Why I Didn't Vaporize You. And it's a recent episode, Discovery Season 2. Episode 1, Brother.
Oh.
Right off the bat, I break the Prime Directive that I set for myself. But I did it with the intention that Jet Reno is the chief medical officer of what's left of the Hiawatha, even though she was the chief engineer. As Pike and Burnham and Non enter into what's left of the Hiawatha, Reno has got it all set up in Sickbay. It's a medical ship, so I'm assuming that part is the main sickbay of the ship. And the introduction to someone is so great as Tig Notaro's Jet Reno is phenomenal. Her snarky lines, she follows in a great lineage of Starfleet sarcastic, cutting humor engineers, and just really, I think what it speaks to, and what struck me when I went back and rewatched that scene about 100 times recently, is that Reno and Pike, Burnham calls it out that she chose to stay behind. She had the opportunity to take a ship out, but she stayed behind, and then it kind of set up what Pike's speech would be later on in the season when he touches the time crystal, and he gives that quick, "You believe in service, sacrifice, compassion, and love." And that's exactly what Jet Reno did to risk herself on that asteroid to keep that handful of her crew members alive. And I think that really kind of sets up her as a character and really kind of gets season 2 of Discovery kicked off right.
Okay, I love this pick so much because that is definitely my favorite kind of thing in Brother is Tig Notaro's introduction and just the jury rigging she does to keep all those people alive in there. I think of it, because she's an engineer, I think of it like Scotty reworking the transporters when he saved himself on the Genola in Relics in TNG. I love the engineering mind of just going to figure out a solution to keep these bodies going. And yeah, such an awesome scene. And I love that we have a rule breaker on the show. He immediately sets up his Prime Directive and then picks a scene with literally no doctor in it, which is fantastic. Awesome deep cut. 2 deep cut picks to start. Fantastic. Katharine, what's your take on this Tig Notaro Jet Reno introduction in Brother?
Yeah, I think you could argue that it fits your Prime Directive because, in that scenario, she's chief of everything, right? True. And probably should be chief of everything.
Well, I like that you said it was a medical
fabulous
ship because I didn't remember that it was. So the Hathaway, I know it was the Hathaway. No, it was the Hiawatha.
Yeah.
The Hiawatha. So it was a medical ship too. Yeah, so that must have been a sickbay.
That's right.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, awesome pick. I think I've got a little bit of a deep cut too for my round 5 pick. Maybe not. We'll see what people's picks look like when they start coming in. So, but my 5 words in a hashtag: he needs your blood to live. Hashtag then he will die. And it is from TNG season 3, episode 7, The Enemy. And it's the scene where Worf won't give his blood to the Romulan in this great episode where they're on Galundin Core and they find a couple of Romulans, and one of them's on board the ship. And basically the doctor is imploring Worf to save his life and help him in this situation by donating his blood. And yeah, there's a couple of really great scenes here with Worf and this Romulan, and he's just gonna let the guy die. And I remember watching this for the first time thinking, I was like 30 years ago now, and I'm thinking, okay, when's he gonna change his mind and do the right thing, because that's how TV works. Nope. He just let the guy die because of some stupid vendetta, which everybody tells him is stupid. Riker's like, it's stupid. Beverly's like, this Romulan didn't kill your family. Picard's telling him, you can't hold it against him, but I'm not going to order you. And I love this moment where the Romulan says, I would rather die than pollute my body with Klingon filth. Anyway, awesome moment. And the final little nugget of this pick is that the sickbay scene happens off screen because Picard calls Crusher after Worf basically says, no, I'm not going to do it, and says, please do not enlist Mr. Worf's help any further. She's like, no problem. He just died. I love this moment, and it's one of the first ones I thought of in terms of this topic. So, Katharine, what's your take on The Enemy from TNG?
Yeah, this is kind of one of those ethical questions, isn't it? And I love those.
Yeah.
Sickbay is a great place for all that stuff. Kind of reminds me of Voyager when there's some scenario where the doctor needs some of B'Elanna's Klingon tissue to help treat the Vidian Dinarapel, and she's kind of reluctant
to
give it. I'm not sure if I'm remembering that right, but it just caused a little ping in my brain. But then, she actually does give the help, where Worf absolutely wouldn't.
Yeah, it was very similar. It was in Life Signs when they're having the romance between the Doctor and Denaro Pell, and B'Elanna comes through in that one. Worf, not so much. Sam, what's your take on this one?
It is great. It's a great episode from that standpoint. And what I remember most about the scene when Crusher is in the office talking to Worf, and she comes at him in that very upbeat, "Oh yeah, this is going to be easy. This is what we're going to do. You're the guy." And when Worf shuts her down, what she does with the acting with her facial expressions is just, she can't believe that he would have the thought process to let this man die. And it just never struck her at all that Worf would turn around and walk out of her explaining, "We're going to save a life." And Worf was very much, "No, I'm just not going to do it."
Lieutenant, I understand your feelings about the Romulans, but this is not the time or the place.
If you had seen them kill your parents, you would understand, Doctor. It is always the time and place for those feelings.
This Romulan didn't murder your parents. And you are the only one who can save his life.
Then he will die.
And so what Gates McFadden did with her acting of the, "I can't believe I just had this conversation, this is how it turned out," was amazing. And that's what always stands out in that scene.
Yeah, the performances in that episode is great, and the writing's just so strong that they stuck to it and didn't. You just feel like it was going to be, become that kind of after school special moment where he decides to help him out, and that did not come. Okay, let's go to round 4. Katharine, what's your number 4 scene in Sickbay?
Okay, my 5 words are "Sickbay is in the name," and my hashtag is Karma Calrissian Chameleon.
Yes, I love this.
And the scene is from A Night in Sickbay, which is basically it's like the culmination of a big sleepover in Sickbay on the Enterprise, the NX-01. And as with most sleepovers, there's been a lot of gossiping and not very much sleeping. Yeah, and just the scene when they actually operate on Porthos and he's in the tank and it's all going on, and Archer and the Doctor are talking about T'Pol and also talking about the surgery, and it's so memorable, and it's such a nice bit of character development. We learn a bit more about Denobulans. We get to see a little bit inside Archer's head. It's very much in Archer's head, that whole episode. And I just really like it from a character point of view, and it's quite funny.
So this is like one of those polarizing episodes. People either love it or hate it. I love it because I'm a big animal lover, and I love the focus on Porthos and the importance of him to
he's so cute.
Archer. But I also love that Pyrithian bat scene. So Sam, what's your take on A Night in Sickbay?
As a huge Enterprise fan, I love A Night in Sickbay. It has one scene I wish that wasn't there, but beyond that, it is such a treat. Right. Just those two would not make very good bunkmates, as the episode implies. And probably it's the toenail cutting, I'm sure, is probably what set Archer over the edge. But no, it's a fantastic pick. The whole episode's great. I love that sickbay, and it is just the coolest. It's one of the few sick bays I would just love to go touch every button. Jim, if you didn't go to the sick bay set, shame on you. But I would love to have touched every button in there. He had the coolest setup. And that episode really kind of showed off a bunch of things, like when you fill the tank.
Yes.
That was the coolest part. Just fill the tank. And Archer helping out with the Porthos surgery. It's a really great pick.
All right, so quick story time. I did go to the sick bay set. It was after the lunch break. It was closed down, and they weren't shooting on it that day. And I was just exploring everywhere. And I went in, and it was all covered like in plastic and everything. But there was a few spots that I got a couple of good photos in there. You can find them on TrekRanks.com. But the funny thing about it is I remember I walked in there, and it was like probably 2:30 in the afternoon after lunch. People had already been working really hard. And someone was sleeping on this thing, and I woke them up. I was like, oh, sorry. Just taking some pictures. So, yeah. Okay, so I'm dying to know, what was the one scene you wanted eliminated? Was it the Pylarian slips, or
it was the scene where Archer he has that dream about T'Pol.
Oh yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, there's a couple little things where it's a little farcical, but overall I like
love
it.
The chameleon's venom is said in the episode is very useful in treating respiratory diseases. So I think we could all use a bit of that right now.
Oh, that's a good one. I did not remember that.
I watched it today and I was like, oh, handy.
Okay, well, let's go to Sam's round 4 pick. What's your number 4 scene in Sickbay?
All right, number 4, Crusher lays a scholarly smackdown. And hashtag, she's the voice of conscience. And it's the TNG, The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 16, Ethics.
Oh, yes.
And we just talked about Worf being in Sickbay and being a thorn in Bev's side. And he's not necessarily a thorn in her side this time, although he does have his mind made up in a certain direction. But I'm talking specifically the visiting doctor, Toby Russell, she runs at odds with Crusher the entire episode, from their second scene together all the way to the end. But the scene that I'm specifically focused on is that conversation at the very end of the episode, after Worf is woken back up again, and you can see that he's going to recover, and there's that happy ending, because for just a moment, you think Worf is dead. When they bring Alexander in and Troy, you think, well, we've lost another security officer. But after he recovers and Russell comes to gloat in Beverly's office, and she gives her the cold shoulder, but it's finally when Toby Russell, when her hubris shows, or her lack thereof, it rubs Beverly the wrong way, and she just absolutely loads into her with lines like you shortcut right through living tissue, you risk your patients' lives and justify in the name of research. It's exactly how you don't want to be talked to by another professional in your field. And Beverly has set high expectations and high standards on the Enterprise, and Russell did not live up to those expectations.
Well said. I mean, the scenes where she dresses her down about gambling with her patients' lives, it's so good. It's such an underrated TNG episode, capped off by even the great twist with Riker not giving him the knife and saying, yeah, I would do it, but it's not what the rules say. You have to have your son do it. So go ahead and do that, Worf. That was awesome. Fantastic episode. I love that. I definitely considered it. Katharine, what's your take on ethics and Dr. Crusher's takedown of Dr. Russell?
Oh, yeah. And the opposing viewpoints, two different sides of medical ethics. I love it. And I think the presence of Alexander in this episode just gives everything just this enormous, added weight to it. Yeah. I love this pick. Yeah. I can't believe I didn't think of it. It's
a smart pick. It's like you said, this is one of those ones with the real weighty, meaty Star Trek topic. Okay, let's go to my round 4 pick, and my 5 words in a hashtag finally got the last word. Hashtag Kirk, Spock, and Sarek lockdown. And of course, it is the TOS Season 2 episode Journey to Babel, which is, again, one of the first ones I thought of, and just an iconic scene. It's when McCoy operates on Sarek with the use of Spock, and then at the very end, he's got Kirk, Spock, and Sarek all in his sick bay, and he's telling them to be quiet and keep it down. I love this. Obviously, an all-time great episode of Star Trek, written by DC Fontana, and the final 30 minutes is just top-notch Trek, with first Spock saying, "Yeah, I'll donate my blood," and everyone's like, "Yeah, but then you might die too," and then they realize that's the only way to go. But then Kirk gets hurt, and Spock's like, yeah, well, now I'm not going to do it because I can't give up control of the Enterprise. And it's just really, really good drama back and forth. And once they get Sarek into surgery with Spock there, the scenes where McCoy and Nurse Chapel are operating are just top-level stuff. And like I said, it closes with Kirk back in bed after his stabbing and all of them kind of complaining. And Amanda's, logic, I'm sick to death of your logic. It's got that iconic moment when Spock asks Sarek, why did you marry her? And Sarek says, it seemed logical at the time, a line that lives on 50 years later. So, Journey to Babel. Katharine, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, this was a tough cut for me. The Yeah, I love this. And McCoy in this episode is brilliant. Spock is there worrying about energy utilization curves, and McCoy's just like, nope.
Yeah, that's right.
Nope.
That's right.
Sedate him. No, you're doing this. Yeah.
That's that last moment where Spock's like, no, I need to get up. I just thought of something. And Chapel just walks around and goes, nope, you're out. It was so good.
Mr. Spock.
Where do you think you're going?
I must see the captain.
My patients don't walk out in the middle of an operation.
Alien ship, I just realized if their power utilization curve is not the norm, it should be Oscar. Identify them, sir. Important.
So is your father's life.
Yeah, that's got to be one of McCoy's best days on the Enterprise.
For sure. Sam, what's your take on Journey to Babel?
Oh, I'm just like, everybody had a great line in that end scene from the moment that Kirk gets from the bridge to the sickbay, and McCoy starts giving him junk about shaking the ship around, and he's just, Bones, tell me what's going on with Spock. It was just fantastic, and a little almost, it was a hard cut for me too. It was almost, I dare say, a fourth wall breaking look when McCoy looks back into the camera and says, well, would you look at that? I finally got the last word. So one of those rare moments, almost a little meta moment, where maybe McCoy knows that the camera's there. And it's a great episode, great scene. Love all of it. Love everything about it.
It really does feel like a meta moment at the end. And I love the way you frame that everybody got a great line in that final 5-6 minutes. Really, really smart script. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go to the soup round. Round 3. Katharine, what's your number 3 scene in sickbay?
My 5 words are more interesting than the Speleothems and hashtag 300 years. This is The Breach from Enterprise, and it's Phlox's moral dilemma over treating or not treating the Antaran.
Wow. Deep cut. Deep cut. I love it.
So yeah, I'm picking the scene where Phlox kind of comes back to the Antaran again, even after they've fallen out a couple of times, and talks to him about his children. Yeah, I love learning more about Phlox's family.
We have grown more open-minded since the last war, but there are still Denobulans who fear Antarans, even hate them. My youngest son, Metis, was seduced by those people. I did my best to convince him he was mistaken. I told him I wouldn't tolerate the values he was embracing. It created a rift between us. Maybe I didn't do enough to reach him. Last time we spoke was nearly 10 years ago. You wanted to know what my children would think if they were here now. I can tell you what Metis would think. He would be happy to have me grant your request and let you die. But that is not the example I tried to set for my children. Why not live? Set an example for yours.
It's a real moment where you see people choosing how to react to something unpleasant and choosing to react, in the bigger way, in the better way. And Phlox does convince the Antaran to let him treat him. And I just really love that moment.
Yeah, I think it's an important moment when he talks about his son. I can't remember his name. That is basically sounds like he's a neo-Nazi a little bit.
Metis or something.
Yeah, Metis, right? And how disappointed he is that he wasn't able to connect with him and teach him in a better way, which of course happens. It's a lot of depth here for Phlox. Definitely an underrated one. Total deep cut. I love it. Sam, what's your take on The Breach and Phlox dealing with the Antaran?
It's a great pick. I really love Phlox. John Billingsley just puts such a nuanced performance together as Phlox in just about every episode he's in. He can go from comedic to biting. He can tell Archer exactly how he feels because he's not in Starfleet and kind of get away with it a little bit. And what I like a lot about that episode is it's another one of those scenes in that episode where Phlox and T'Pol have a moment together where it's just the two aliens on the ship having a conversation. And he just kind of speaks his feelings to her. And she kind of amplifies it and they kind of play off of each other when they're unsure about how to handle these situations. And it's just a great pick.
Yeah, that's another great moment. And yeah, you're right. I mean, John Billingsley, so good as Phlox. And this is definitely one of his high points for sure. Okay, I love it. Lots of deep cut picks this episode. We love that on TrekRanks. Sam, what's your super round pick?
Super round pick. 5 words and a hashtag. Maybe you're attracted to her. Hashtag the doctor's first love. You guys said it a few minutes ago. It's Voyager Season 2, Episode 19, Life Signs.
Yes.
Okay, so the Doctor has, 60 fantastic episodes, especially once 7 comes on. You could choose anything from him.
So many.
But I wanted to think about the Doctor in one of his most early kind of getting his programming together. And the scene that I thought struck me the most earlier on, it was towards the end when Daenerys was trying to convince him to let her stay as a hologram. But I kind of went back to the middle of the episode, and there's a scene where Kes comes in, and she catches the Doctor running a level 2 diagnostic, and Kes breaks it down and says, there's nothing wrong with you. Your programming is just adapting. Hey, buddy, you're falling in love. And Kes just kind of cut right through it with the Doctor, and he was like, oh, I don't want to fall in love. And then 60 seconds later, once Kes works him over a little bit, he's like, all right, well, how do I do this? And from there, you see that clumsy kind of Doctor feeling his way through things for the rest of the episode. And him and the actress, the Dinara Pell character, they just have a little bit of great chemistry going on there. The only thing I'm glad of that didn't stick was the Shmulus name that she came up with. Shmulus. I'm glad that didn't stick. But beyond that, I thought it was a great episode. Is that Doctor really in season 2 feeling out the fact that maybe he is beginning to turn a little bit more humanistic than his programming would initially allow.
Yeah, my favorite thing about this episode is that I love when Dinara Pell comes back. That just I love that connection that they did. That little trivia. She's the same actress, which no one knows this because it's such a deep cut. It's so weird. She played the woman at the beginning of Silicon Avatar that Riker was connecting with, and then she got killed.
No, I did not know that. I just watched Silicon Avatar.
It's crazy. Same actress, like Susan Dial or something like that. But yeah, I like Dinara Pell's character, and I really enjoyed when she came back in Resolutions. And this is just a great EMH Doctor episode. Like you said, there's like 60 or 70 great Doctor episodes you can pick, and that you picked this one says a lot because it's really helps develop his character. Katharine, what's your take on Life Signs?
Yeah, you just reminded me that, and it was just like I was flashing back to the first moment I saw her, because I must have seen Resolutions before I saw Life Signs somehow.
Oh, right.
So
yeah.
I was aware that, like, obviously something had happened between the Doctor and this woman, and she calls him Schmullis. I'm like, what on earth was that? And it was just like, oh my God, it was like remembering the first time I'd seen these episodes. It was really vivid. So that's cool. And yeah, I love that you picked the scene with Kes, because it's like we get to see the Doctor grow in front of our eyes, and I love those moments. So yeah, I love this pick.
Yeah, I think we can all be happy that Schmullis didn't stick. So. Okay. All right, let's go to my super round pick. 5 words and a hashtag. The boy who cried wolf. Hashtag never tell the same lie twice. And yes, this famous scene from Improbable Cause DS9 Season 3 occurred in Sickbay. It's actually the whole scene is amazing because Garak is getting grilled by Odo, Sisko, and Bashir in the DS9 infirmary. Obviously, it's a well-known scene, one of a very memorable line for Garak, maybe his most famous, which is definitely saying something. But it comes right after Garak has blown up his own shop, and no one realizes it yet.
You blew up your own shop, Garak!
And Bashir's checking him out, and Odo's like super suspicious, and Garak's like, but I'm just a simple tailor. Why would anyone want to blow up my shop? And Odo's like, because you're in the Obsidian Order. And Garak, no, don't believe the Doctor's flights of fancy. And then you got Sisko in there as well, grilling him, and those two leave, and Bashir tells him the great story about the boy who cried wolf. And it ends with the great realization from Garak that the moral is not about no one believing you when you lie all the time, but it's the fact that you shouldn't tell the same lie twice.
Charming story.
I'm not finished. The next day, the boy does it again, and the next two. And on the fourth day, a wolf really comes. The boy cries out at the top of his lungs, but the villagers ignore him. And the boy and his flock are gobbled up.
Well, that's a little graphic for children, wouldn't you say?
But the point is, if you lie all the time, nobody's going to believe you, even when you're telling the truth.
Are you sure that's the point, Doctor?
Of course. What else could it be?
That you should never tell the same lie twice.
Genius stuff. Improbable Cause. DS9. Katharine, what's your take on this one?
Oh, yes. Another tough cut. There were some lovely moments between Bashir and Garrick in Sickbay. And yeah, I was sad not to have one on my list. But yeah, it really makes me wonder, what are the little stories that children are told on Cardassia, where we tell that story?
You can't fault his logic on that one. It really makes a lot more sense than the actual moral of that story. Sam, what's your take on Improbable Cause?
It makes one of the best memes and gifs with Garrick's line there. It is great episode, great pick on that one. I've watched a couple Bashir episodes and doing research for this, and I did not watch that one. But man, anytime you get Garrick and Bashir together, those two just play off each other so well, and especially very early on. And I had done a little background research on Garrick, and to know that he was supposed to be a one-off character, but then become so integral. And I think it's absolutely Robinson's the playing of that character, and then how he moves that character against Bashir, and those two just become thick with intrigue. It's just amazing. It's just a great pick.
Yeah, Andrew Robinson, Garrick could talk about him and his impact on Deep Space Nine forever, but obviously this is one of those memorable moments that I think sometimes people forget occurred in Sickbay. So I decided to pick it. Okay, let's go to round 2. Katharine, what's your number 2 scene in Sickbay?
Okay, my 5 words are learning to rely on others, and my hashtag is #cortical node. And this is the episode Imperfection from Voyager Season 7. And this is Icheb giving Seven his cortical node. So
I'm already tearing up.
Yeah, after he calls the Doctor and Janeway to the cargo bay, obviously to find him, where he's kind of cut himself off from his cortical node. They then take him to Sickbay, and there's this whole exchange over, somebody better use the cortical node.
Oh, right.
And he won't let the Doctor treat him unless Seven agrees to take it, and all this, and they have this wonderful exchange about whether or not you should rely on others, and the risks that are taken by a Starfleet crew when they respond to distress calls.
Check your scans. You'll see I'm already adapting.
Some of your implants have adapted, but not all.
Then apply the resequencing technique I researched.
This debate is pointless. I won't accept the node.
And I won't keep it.
Someone had better use the damn thing. If it stays disconnected much longer, it won't do either of you any good.
You're acting like a child.
I'm trying to save your life.
Only because you've grown too dependent on me.
So you think I need to learn to rely on other people?
Yes.
What about you? You've refused to rely on a single member of this crew. You hid your condition from the rest of us. You deactivated the Doctor, and now you're rejecting my help. You're the one who needs to rely on others.
Yeah, I just think it's a lovely moment, and it's made all the more poignant for, what the occurrences in Picard recently. So,
well, all the more poignant for something we're not going to talk about. No, it's the loss of Icheb. Star Trek Picard, that was brutal, and they even reference this in that awful, gruesome scene. But this episode, again, this is one of those just sneaky good episodes that people forget about. And when Icheb kind of gets a bad rap sometimes, the character, but man, how can you not be moved by that character and the performances and Imperfection? And I do love that moment that you said, I think it was the Doctor, he said, somebody better use it. one of you two better use it because it's about to stop working. So amazing moment, and Icheb really does teach Seven lesson there about accepting help from others. Really, really good. Sam, what's your take on imperfection?
Katharine, that's a great pick. A great episode there. And obviously, Seven already had feelings for the kids and had it really affects her in a way that she's not prepared for emotionally. And we see that when she's back, I believe she's back in the, she's reviewing pictures. I think she's kind of going back and forth a little bit, just trying to get a feel for what life is like. And he really, that entire thing comes and takes her by surprise when Janeway tells her that here's Icheb's plan. But yeah, it's a great scene. And oh yes, you can tell that by the time we get to Picard, fast forward 20 years, that it really impacts her from that time that she's back in the Alpha Quadrant, and she's going to fight to protect her kids.
Yeah, it's amazing that we've actually seen a continuation of that story now, here 20 years later. Crazy. So cool. Okay, Sam, how about you? What's your number 2 pick?
Well, number 2 pick for me is going to be 5 words. Phlox shares deep family secret. # change something in you. And it's Enterprise Season 2, Episode 21, The Breach.
Well, I cannot believe what a deep cut duplicate. That is so cool.
So I didn't say too much about it. Katharine, you got in my head. You know, we've already talked about it, so I won't say too much. I'll just say this about it. And when I went back and watched this episode a couple times and watched it again today, if what Phlox says and does, and how Hudak changes his opinion, and even the conversation Hudak has with Archer on the way off the ship, if that isn't what the core of what Star Trek is, then I don't know what is. It's the ability for people to move past prejudices and preconceptions and to really find their better selves. And the whole episode speaks to that. You can see Phlox's revulsion early on, or not revulsion, but just that standoffishness that he takes when he sees an Antaran. And then immediately when he begins to give Phlox a little bit of the business early on in the episode, you can see that Phlox really fights that and struggles with that, but then is willing to open up to him and share that secret about his family and those feelings that he had about his grandmother and his youngest son. And just a great, powerful episode. Yeah,
I'm glad you said that. I was going to highlight talking about the way his grandmother and the way they were taught, and really, really powerful stuff. Is Hudak's the name of the Antaran, right?
That's right.
Yeah, you said that. Yeah. I was trying to remember earlier. Okay, yeah, The Breach. What an awesome, cool, deep cut pick. I've sometimes when I think of The Breach, I think of this as the B storyline, but I think I've got that wrong, right? It's really weird because they got the juxtaposition of the spelunking and the cave
That's
rescue,
right.
which to me always felt like the A storyline. But I think I need to change that in my head. Okay, just rambling. The Breach, awesome, amazing. That might be the biggest deep cut duplicate we've ever had, because I'm surprised that one got picked and picked twice. I love it. Let's go to my round 2 pick. 5 words and a hashtag. Sociopath and a hologram save Voyager. Hashtag see the light that is my breath. And it is Voyager Season 3, Episode 1, Basics Part 2. The amazing Lon Suter, played by Brad Dourif, and the Doctor, and they're planning to retake the ship. And really, I knew this was going to be right at the top of my list. It's the scene where Lon Suter basically is realizing he's going to have to kill again. And for those who don't remember, Lon Suter is a sociopath that murdered a crew member on Voyager Ex Maquis in the episode Meld, but has since gained a little bit of calm after a mind meld with Tuvok. So he's kind of reformed a little bit. And I love this moment because the Doctor's talking to him about kind of, hey, here's the plan. We got to get going. And the Doctor looks at him and says, oh, you think this is the chance for you to escape? And Lon Suter's like, no. This is me realizing that I have to probably kill somebody to get what we need, and I'm not comfortable with that. And it's going to send me back down this dark path that I've worked so hard to get past. So you have that moment. And then later when he crawls out of the Jeffries tube and he's got a dead Kazon in there. And the Brad Dourif is just such an amazing genre actor. He's in a million things. He's been nominated for an Academy Award for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He's a spectacular actor gift to Star Trek in this role. And he just collapses on the floor, and the doctor's like, let me stimulate you. No drugs, no drugs. And he remembers his meditation from Tuvok and just says, I just need to breathe, see the light that is my breath, as he tries to calm himself. And then he ends up, saving the day, and probably one of the best redemption stories in Star Trek history. Ooh, top 5 redemption stories. Might need to do that one. I love Lon Suter. I love this moment. And Basics Part 2 is epic.
Mr. Paris apparently was able to... Oh.
I didn't know what to do. I didn't think I should leave him there where they could find him.
Of course, you were smart to bring him here. We can put him in a stasis drawer.
Well, we have weapons now.
You did what was necessary, Mr. Suter. 5 cc's of improvaline will help you calm down.
No drugs. I just need to breathe. See the light that is my breath.
Sam, what's your take on Basics Part 2 and Lon Suter?
It's a great 2-parter, and Seska will not be on the redemption arc episode. I'll tell you that right now.
No chance.
When you were talking about Lon Suter, you're absolutely right. Brad Dourif is a gift to Star Trek, and to have him show up in those few episodes that he made such an impact and was such an outside-of-the-box character in that first episode that we saw him in. And then to have him turn around and give his life to get the crew back on the Voyager again and put right all of his wrongs. It was just a great way, a great redemptive arc. And I do remember the doctor even promising him, hey, if you trust me and stick with me, I'll do whatever I can to help you through these things. But don't forget, sometimes we have to be violent. And he was able to kind of go right with it and get the job done. Yeah, that was a great scene and moment as well. Katharine, what's your take on Lon Suter in Basics Part 2?
Yeah, what fabulous acting, to take a character like that. And I don't know, really, that moment where he's collapsed on the floor and he's so distressed by it all. And I really feel him. I'm like, there's real sympathy there. And what more can you ask, really? I think that's just an amazing scene. You really do feel it, like you said. I almost wish that that story had come a little later so we could have seen more of him. It was almost like, that arc ended too soon. I wanted more. That is the truth. It's bittersweet when he dies at the end. It would have been nice to see him be able to get the appreciation of the crew for literally saving them and helping get them back on board. Okay, let's do it. Round 1. Katharine, what is your number 1 scene in Sickbay? Okay, so I've gone for a totally different vibe on my number 1. My 5 words are, get me the thrombic modulator, and the hashtag is multi-vector assault mode. Yes! So good. And it is that scene where the doctor materializes in Sickbay on the Prometheus in Message in a Bottle. So good. In Voyager season 4. And, we see him interact with the dying crewman, a Romulan who brings in a patient, and then the latest experimental version of the EMH. It's kind of a light-hearted reminder of how far the Doctor's come since he was first activated, and also, drops in a mention of the Dominion War, and we see the new Starfleet uniforms. It's also the beginning of, all the funny stuff in a very comic episode. So, couldn't leave this out. Definitely one of my toughest cuts. I mean, all the scenes with the Doctor and the Mark II and Andy Dick, who, whatever you think about him, he's pretty dang funny and perfect in this role. And this was definitely one they had to consider because their introduction and their back and forth inside Sickbay is just genius. Awesome top 15 episode at TrekRanks. Sam, what's your take on Message in a Bottle? Oh, I love Message in a Bottle. It's easily one of the most rewatchable episodes of Voyager. You can drop it on any time and watch it. Seeing those two guys interact with each other is just phenomenal. I love the two EMHs going after it. I love the Prometheus. It's a gorgeous ship. Everything's super white. I don't know how they keep it clean.
But that scene in the sickbay when those two just banter with each other and they're trying to figure out how to get the Romulans off, it's a great pick, great episode. Love it.
Yeah. So
I'm a doctor, not a commando.
so much going on here. And I love when he ends up being the hero and comes back and it says, while you were getting interrogated, here's everything I was doing to save the ship. So, all right. Sam, how about you, man? What's your number one scene in Sickbay?
My number one pick, 5 words and a hashtag, Spock brings the house down, hashtag in a pig's eye. It's the original series, season 2, episode 1, A Mock Time.
Wow.
And it's Spock's reaction when he figures out that he didn't actually kill his best friend and Captain James Kirk.
Dang it. So good. I did not think of this one.
He walks into the sick bay and he's telling McCoy, I'm going to resign. I need you to take care of the funeral arrangements. I'm going to make sure that Mr. Scott's in command. And Jim pops out from behind him and says, well, you should better ask me first. And he grabs him by the shoulder, spins him around, and you get that big Spock smile, and he almost loses it. And it's just happy, elated, and he's just confused by the whole situation. And for me, that entire scene, when it's Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, is just pure delineated TOS. When you get those three together in a room, in sickbay, and all McCoy wants is the dirt. He immediately, as soon as Chapel leaves, tell me what happened with the girl in the wedding. He just wanted the gossip. He'd tell me what happened. And Spock's still reeling from it. And it's just so good. And of course, when they walk out, and it's the same thing that we saw in Journey to Babel, it's very logical. My reaction was perfectly logical. And McCoy just gets in that last word again, in a pig's eye.
There's just one thing, Mr. Spock. You can't tell me that when you first saw Jim alive that you weren't on the verge of giving us an emotional scene that would have brought the house down.
Merely my quite logical relief that Starfleet had not lost the highly proficient captain.
Yes, Mr. Spock, I understand.
Thank you, Captain.
Of course, Mr. Spock. Your reaction was quite logical.
Thank you, Doctor.
In a pig's eye.
Come on, Spock. Let's go mind the store.
Just a great scene. I love every bit about it when you get those three together and you can have such a funny, heartwarming scene with Kirk, Spock, and McCoy together.
Spectacular pick. I love that we both had TOS picks and we both had two of McCoy's most famous lines in our 5 words and a hashtag. I finally got the last word and in a pig's eye. A muck time. It's as good as it gets. And that scene is, again, iconic original series Trek. Katharine, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, this was on my list up until about an hour before we started recording.
Awesome.
And I just, just that smile and that reaction, it's just everything that you want it to be. And the line from Spock, the moment I realized I'd killed the captain, I lost all interest in T'Pring. You're just like, yeah, you did. Yeah, they're just, I don't know. Yeah, Kirk and Spock is a very special relationship.
This pick is awesome, and I did not think of it. I love it. I think
it was the first thing I thought of.
It's perfect. I think I just you forget that was in sickbay. So amazing. Okay, let's round it off with my number one pick. 5 words and a hashtag. Sacrificing Trip to save Trip. Hashtag you made a damn good father. And it is Enterprise Season 2 Similitude, my number 3 ranked Enterprise episode at TrekRanks. And yeah, this is when, of course, Sim reports to sickbay to sacrifice his life to save Trip in this amazing, amazing episode of Star Trek Enterprise. It's all-time great Trek, full stop. It's incredible. There's just one heartfelt moment after another. The performance here from Connor Chenier is just top level in Trek. Yeah, the emotion. Everyone I think has seen or aware of this episode where they basically grow a clone because they need to harvest the parts to save Trip while they're out in the expanse and don't have any other options. Really great classic ethical dilemma for Trek. And when they find out at the end that the operation is actually going to kill Sim, and he's not going to be able to live out his short life. Archer and him have this amazing back and forth.
I don't have to tell you what's at stake. I must complete this mission. And to do that, I need Trip. Trip!
And yeah, it's amazing, powerful stuff. But the scene here, of course, is when Sim knows what he's going to do and goes in and tells Phlox that he made a damn good father. And Phlox responds with, "You made a damn good son." Amazing. And I just wanted the score by Belton Ray Bunch. The music in this episode, he actually won an Emmy for it. Incredible episode of Star Trek. Sam, what's your take on Similitude?
I absolutely hate that I didn't even think of this episode, but you're absolutely. It goes right back to Phlox being such a great character, and it's such a heartfelt. The entire thing, when you see Trip hurt at the very beginning of the episode, all the way through the growth of it and to the end. And you're right, Archer. I need my engineer. It's great episode. Phlox is amazing, and Trip playing the part of Sim. Man, it's just gut-wrenching. It's gut-wrenching, that ethical dilemma and what the crew had to do. And it's what makes, I think, Season 3 of Enterprise, as much as great as Season 4 is, Season 3 to me really shows, it goes right to the heart of what they had to do in the choices, the hard choices they had to make every step of the way to find a way to get past the Xindi. And this is that episode that just... Man, it chokes me up thinking about it. It's a darn good episode of Star Trek. No matter how you cut it.
Not gonna lie, I watched it about an hour before this podcast, and I was bawling like a baby. I always do. Katharine, what's your take on Similitude?
Yeah, I always think about Enterprise. I could have filled this top 5 with all Enterprise things, I think. Yeah. And it feels like the fact that they were the first Starfleet ship really out there, and everything that they went through in Season 3 and the Xindi arc, it felt like they could do things and ask these really tough questions that you feel they almost couldn't have done in other Star Treks. It was like, well, they just wouldn't have grown the Sim clone in the first place on another Star Trek show. But, they were in this dire situation, so they did. And then you get all these, juicy repercussions from that. And I just always remember Sim saying, I don't just remember Trip's childhood, I remember mine. And it's like, yeah, it's that whole nature nurture.
Yep.
You're the same, but you're not. And wonderful pick.
They set up so many obstacles too. With they're in that some kind of weird phenomena where the ship's getting attacked by these particles, and Sim is the one that comes up with the idea to help kind of drag them out, save the day. And I'll say John Billingsley has a moment in this episode where in Sickbay when he has to tell Archer that Sim's not going to survive the procedure. That is some amazing, powerful acting from John Billingsley. So good.
There's been a development.
I'm listening.
Sim won't survive the transplant.
You told me you could remove the tissue without harming him.
That assessment was based on symbiotes grown from Mycerian DNA. My tests on Sim show that human-based symbiotes are not as resilient. If I excise the quantity of neural tissue I need to save Commander Tucker, Sim will die. I'm sorry, Captain.
An incredible scene and episode. Okay, let's rattle off some secondary systems. I got a lot. I think you guys do too.
Let's see what you can do with the secondary systems.
Katharine, let's start with you. Just rattle off a few.
Okay, so a few that we haven't talked about before. I thought about Space Seed, because Khan spends quite a bit of time in Sickbay.
That was on my toughest cut list for sure. That first showdown where they're just kind of mano a mano. He's sitting there and just evaluating Kirk, and so good. Really, really good.
Also, I've got Shades of Grey on there just because the entire episode is pretty much in Sickbay.
I'll say this now. My special shout out was going to be Night in Sickbay and Shades of Grey, because they were both two very renowned kind of polarizing episodes of Trek that basically completely take place in Sickbay. So keep going.
Yeah, also, yesterday's Enterprise. I just always remember seeing Rachel Garrett and you realize that the captain of the Enterprise C was a woman, and that was just always like really kind of got me. And yeah,
Great
that just
moment.
very vividly sticks with me from yesterday's Enterprise. Deep Space Nine, I watched in preparation for this, I watched Life Support because I thought something around the death of Brile and everything might come into this. But the scene I really loved where Bashir really tells off Kai Wynn, that didn't actually happen in Sickbay, so it got cut. I also had the Magnificent Ferengi, where they go to Empok Nor and use the infirmary as their
genius.
as their little base of operations.
And kill Kevon. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, Voyager, there's just loads. Wanted to give a mention to Phage when Neelix loses his lungs, and State of Flux when they uncover Seska as the spy.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, lots from Enterprise, the whole everything in Regeneration, where Phlox is kind of getting slowly assimilated. That was another one.
Yeah.
The EMH's appearance in First Contact.
Yep,
that's such a tight little scene, and it's just awesome. But yeah, didn't make the list. Also, in Discovery in New Eden, where Tilly is having that little conversation with May, and she's like, "I've had espresso in Sickbay." Yeah, long list of secondary systems.
Those are good ones. I love it. Sam, how about you, man?
I think that the one that popped in my head first, and I established the Prime Directive and it removed it, was the scene in the motion picture where he's just Spock has recovered from Voyager, and those two are talking about Kirk and Spock having a special relationship. When Spock describes that Voyager is missing love, it's that scene is the fulcrum that twists TMP around. I took it out because McCoy was just kind of standing there. He didn't say too much, but that was the first one that popped in my head when I thought about Sickbay. I had Mirror, almost the entire episode. They kind of use Sickbay as the base of operations. They can kind of get away from everybody.
Yeah, I didn't think of that.
I had that too because of that moment. It's always stuck in my head when McCoy says,
Everything's all messed up, changed around, out of place.
Captain, what's happened?
Oh, not everything. That spot. I spilled acid there a year ago. Jim, what in blazes is...
I don't know. It's our Enterprise. But it isn't.
I love that one. Good one.
I had another Enterprise. Observer Effect was on my list for a very long time. The end of that is just that last probably, 15 minutes. It's all Sickbay and just great stuff. I had that little scene it was the morgue, but that scene in Night Terrors where Beverly sees the body stand up is definitely a classic, like 2-second scene. And I had one from Picard, when Girardi and him are on the La Serena. I think it's in I can't remember the last episode, part 1 or 2, where she discovers with the old school tricorder that he has the issue in his brain.
Oh, yeah.
He gets up, though, and he delivers his big line on the bridge talking to everybody. So I cut that one out. And then the last one that didn't fit for me was the birth of Jim Kirk in Star Trek 2009. He was born on that medical shuttle, and I watched that scene a few times, and man, that one always gets me. Talk about a crying scene.
Damn, that's a great one.
But it just it didn't have a doctor that we knew. It was too short-lived. It wasn't in a sickbay per se.
But it's the birth of Jim
I love it.
Oh, that's such an all-time great scene, and I love that tweak that it occurred in a medical shuttle. Amazing. That's a fantastic deep cut pick too. Okay, you guys rattled off a lot of the ones I had. I also had Latent Image. I love that moment when the Doctor finally is reliving a moment where he has to choose between saving Harry Kim or Ensign Jital, and of course he saves Kim, and then kind of loses it when he realizes that Jital died because of that. I was talked about Gowron earlier. It was from Broken Link when I like the moment on the Defiant where they bring Garrick along just to keep Odo occupied in Sickbay and telling him wild stories about his time as a gardener at the Cardassian embassy on Romulus. I love that moment. And it was the end of that episode when you can hear Gowron in the background giving his speech when Odo realizes that he thinks he's the changeling guy. That's when I had that Robert O'Reilly realization. I also want to give a shout out to the amazing introduction of the Doctor tricorder, medical tricorder that we see in Caretaker, and then we see kind of replayed a bunch of time in projections and a couple other episodes. I also had Tapestry from that great moment when Picard gets shot in the heart and wakes up laughing before all the antics with Q. I had When It Rains, that moment when Bashir is attempting to get information on the changing disease and realizes that basically Starfleet is the one that infected Odo. And I had one more here that wasn't mentioned. Oh, it's Timescape, when Beverly is seen being shot by a Romulan in sickbay and is frozen in time. I think that was a really cool moment in mystery when they unraveled that. Found out the Romulan was trying to shoot somebody else. Okay, amazing deep cut picks. Scenes in Trek never disappoints. Love that we had a lot of deep cuts tonight. But now let's get into our regeneration cycle and go through some stats and a quick recap of our picks.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Okay, Katharine, let's start with you. Let's recap your top 5 scenes in sickbay.
Yeah, so my number 5 pick was from By Inferno's Light, where Sisko gets Gowron to re-sign the Khitomer Accords. And that's DS9, Season 5, Episode 15. My number 4 pick was from A Night in Sickbay, when Archer and Phlox operate on Porthos. That's from Enterprise, Season 2, Episode 2. My number 3 pick was The Breach from Enterprise Season 2, Episode 21, where Phlox has to convince the Antaran Hudak to be operated on. My number 2 pick was Imperfection from Voyager Season 7, Episode 2, Icheb giving Seven his cortical node. My number 1 pick was Message in a Bottle from Voyager Season 4, Episode 14, when the Doctor materializes in the Prometheus sickbay.
Fantastic. So you had 1 from Deep Space Nine and then 2 each from Enterprise and Voyager. Great list. Sam, how about you, man? Recap your picks.
Right. My number 5 pick was from Discovery Season 2, Episode 1, Brother, the introduction of Jet Reno as she's taking care of the folks from Hiawatha. Number 4 was The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 16, Ethics, where Crusher, she draws the line in the sand with the ethics of Dr. Toby Russell. Number 3 pick was Voyager, Season 2, Episode 19, Life Signs. It's Kes helping the Doctor discover that his programming might be evolving in finding love. My number 2 pick was from Enterprise Season 2, Episode 21, The Breach, where Phlox has to go and share a little bit about his family pain to make sure that an Antaran takes his medicine. And my number 1 pick was the original series, Season 2, Episode 1, A Mock Time, when Spock discovers that his friend Jim Kirk is still alive and kicking.
In a pig's eye. So you spread it around. Amazing. You had 1 each from TOS, TNG, Voyager, Enterprise, and Discovery. And my top 5 was from TNG, The Enemy, when Worf will not give up his blood to the dying Romulan. Number 4 pick from TOS, Journey to Babel, when McCoy finally gets the last word with Kirk and Spock and Sarek all in his sickbay. Number 3 was from Deep Space Nine, Improbable Cause, and Garrick's amazing take on The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Number 2 from Voyager, Basics Part 2, and the redemption of Lon Suter fighting through his illness. And Enterprise Similitude was my number 1 pick, and Sim sacrificing his life for Trip to help save the Enterprise. So I had 1 each from TOS, TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise. So let's break down the numbers. We had 1 duplicate, that deep cut pick of The Breach, which I love. And let's talk about the doctors. This is kind of a little bit of an upset. 1 pick, Bashir was represented once, Crusher twice, the EMH and McCoy 3 times each, and Phlox led the way with 4 scenes being highlighted, which, if we break down the episodes, this is really a surprise for me that we spread it around really good. We had basically everything from TOS to Discovery had at least 1 pick, so no Picard, Short Tricks, or Kelvin Timeline. We had 1 pick from Discovery, 2 from TOS, TNG, and Deep Space Nine, and then 4 each from Voyager and Enterprise, which is really cool that they led the way on this amazing, super cool topic. But as always, we've once again entered a temporal causality loop. So before we can depart, it's time to hear from you.
The Enterprise has been caught up in a temporal causality loop, and I suspect that something similar may have happened to you.
And for this week's temporal causality loop, we are going to have a true temporal causality loop and read you 2 lists from 2 different shows going back in time here. So first up, from our recent episode 76, the top 5 comedic characters, had an awesome list here from Ben Nicholson at Ben Kerr Now. And his list, his number 5 for top 5 comedic characters, his 5 words and a hashtag was no acute moodiness overload here. And of course, it is the ENH, the emergency navigational hologram from The End is the Beginning in Picard. His number 4 pick was weird, straight-talking, blunt humor. It was Jet Reno from Discovery. I love that. His number 3 pick, it was a fire hazard from his birthday presentation in Fury. It's Tuvok. Number 2, I believe I said that, and he said that twice, in Friday's Child to Kirk, fashioning arrows, and then also in the Doomsday Machine to the Doctor, it's Spock explaining himself when he's a little too detailed. I believe I said that. And number 1, Worf, I'm marry, now give birth. Pretty good. Okay, then we've got one more list. We're going to go back to episode 70. We haven't had enough scenes in Trek yet, so we're going to read you 1 great top 5 scenes in a cave that we got in from Ian at Rebooting Time on Twitter. Top 5 scenes in a cave. This is great. He's got full 5 words and hashtag. The Great Escape, Fire Phasers, hashtag mining our way through. It's Star Trek Insurrection with Picard, Worf, and Data. Fire phasers through a rock face to allow the Baku to escape. I love that deep cut pick from Insurrection. Number 4, It's All in Our Minds. Hashtag Captain and Doctor joined by the mind. Of course, it is attached when Picard and Crusher realize they're telepathically linked. Number 3, Nothing suspicious is happening here. Hashtag What Was She Doing? And it is Voyager's State of Flux and Chakotay finding Seska in a cave. I think I may have picked that scene, that episode when they realize Seska is a Cardassian agent. Number 2, My Mind to Your Mind, hashtag Archer Meld. Oh, I like this one. It's from The Forge when Erev mind melds with Archer in Star Trek Enterprise. And his number 1, oh my God, goodness, I can't even believe this. I'm so glad I picked this. His number 1 scene in the cave, the 3 amigos go caving, hashtag who you gonna call. It's Enterprise Season 2, Episode 21, The Breach, when Travis, Trip, and Malcolm enter the cave. I cannot believe that was on that list after it was picked tonight twice. Super cool. All right, so once again, those picks definitely good enough to clear ourselves from this week's temporal causality loop. So as always, I want to thank everyone for all your great picks. Keep them coming to me at TrekRanks or at Enterprise Extras. We can retweet them. But we also want to hear from you. So put together your own list of top 5 scenes in Sickbay or any list from our past shows. Give us a call at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527. That's 609-512-LLAP. Or you can just record yourself and send me a DM and link me to it. We can do it that way too. Pretty sure that's what Sam did, and he's here on the show tonight. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks. And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we're doing a very special episode, not to end on a downer, but June 1st is going to be the birthday of the great Rene Auberjonois, who played Odo on Deep Space Nine, who passed away back in December of 2019. So we thought in honor of his date of birth and his great loss, we'd do our top 5 Odo episodes, which, you know, in TrekRanks parlance is really could be an episode or a moment or whatever. So Katharine and Sam, if you had to choose one Odo episode or moment off the top of your head, what's the first thing jumping in there, Katharine?
Oh, the first thing that came to my mind was His Way.
Oh.
And
yes.
Nanook of the North.
He's so good. So good in His Way. Amazing. How about you, Sam, for Odo?
I think that moment where Odo is cradling Luxana Troy and he lets himself transform into a pillow for her, a blanket, is just it just shows how sweet and tender he was under that gruff exterior that he built up. I love the character.
Yeah. Was that in
The Muse? I think is the one I was
from
thinking.
The Muse.
Yeah, he did it in The Muse.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're going to celebrate Odo on the next episode of Trek Ranks. Looking forward to that. And obviously, miss the great Renee Auberjonois. All right, so a huge thanks to Katharine Robinson and Sam Nelson for coming on tonight's show. Want to give you guys a chance. Any final Trek subspace communications you guys want to relay before you depart? Katharine?
Only that you recently were a guest on a podcast of mine, and
Yes.
that's available to find on Geekly and the channel GKLYCO if anyone wants to check it out.
Yeah, that was fun. We did. They had me be the Star Trek Quizmaster, which I've never done before. So I came up with a quiz, which was pretty fun. I gotta say,
it was great fun. Yeah,
good
I
times.
think you've got a good secondary podcast career there if you
All
want
right.
to do quizzes.
well, maybe someday we'll work a quiz into Trek Ranks. All right, Sam. Hope you enjoyed your first time on Trek Ranks.
I absolutely did, Jim. Thank you. It was my first podcast ever. I was telling Katharine before we got started, so thank you so much. I was super excited. I poured over it. Man, I'm just glad that I could be a part of something I've listened to for 80 plus episodes. Thank you so much.
That is great to hear. Appreciate you coming on and for all your feedback. And finally, I just want to thank everyone for engaging with us again here on episode 83 of the Trek Ranks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
And you, Sarek, would you also say thank you to your son
I don't understand.
for saving your life?
Spock acted in the only logical manner open to him. One does not thank logic, Amanda.
Logic. Logic. I'm sick to death of logic. Do you want to know how I feel about your logic?
Emotional, isn't she? She has always been that way. Indeed. Why did you marry her? At the time, it seemed the logical thing to do.
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire Trek Ranks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
No. If you keep arguing with your kindly family doctor, you're going to spend your next 10 days right here. If you cooperate, you'll be out in 2.
Doctor, I think I'll return to my station now.
You are at your station, Mr. Spock.
Dr. McCoy, I believe you're enjoying all this.
Indeed, Captain. I've never seen him look so happy.
Shut up. Well, what do you know? I finally got the last word.